Good day, podcast community. Welcome to Ethics Vibes. My name is David Wasilewski, and we welcome you to our second podcast under the name Destructive Side of Entrepreneurship. And today we will be talking to an entrepreneur, Dan Fucich, and find out how he avoids the destructive side of entrepreneurship and how he runs his business so successfully. My name is David Wasilewski. I'm the Albert Vera Professor of Business Ethics at Duquesne University, and I'm the Executive Director of the Vera Institute for Business Ethics, our VIBE. I also am the editor of Business and Society Review, a journal in our field, and been teaching here at Duquesne for over 20 years. Got my certificate in the mail, so I know it's been about that long. And recently we've started these podcast series, and we're very proud to have Dan here as our guest. Let me turn it over to my friend and colleague, Peter Giannidis, to introduce himself, and then we'll get to the interview with Dan.
Thanks, Dave. I am Peter Giannidis. I am a professor of entrepreneurship and strategy in the School of Business. I'm also the holder of the Murley Gilliand Professorship in Entrepreneurial Finance. And I've been here, I'm going on 10 years, and I'm happy to be part of this podcast. It's really a connection between the concept of entrepreneurship, small business creation, and the intersection of ethics. Today we have a great guest, Dan Fucich, who is the Chief Science Officer and co-founder of AlgenAir. Dan, thanks for coming here. Could you tell us a little bit about your background and how you got to AlgenAir?
Absolutely. Yes, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate sharing a little bit of my story. But my background is in biology. I graduated from Duquesne University in 2015 from the biology program. From there, I went to University of Maryland to finish my doctorate in environmental molecular biology. And what we do is look at extremely small molecular scale and then look how that affects on a global scale literally, with the entire environment. I've got background in working with and for several startups in 3D bioprinting, plastics recycling, which is fascinating. And I do write quarterly for the National Catholic Bioethics Quarterly for their scientific review.
Oh, great. Go ahead, Dan.
Yeah, sure. Just, Dan, how did you get the idea for AlgenAir? How did this come about?
Yeah, it started in graduate school, myself and my co-founder. We had an opportunity to pitch for an incredibly small amount of money. We threw 3 really bad ideas on a whiteboard, picked the one that was the least bad, and pitched it. That was actually for growing nutraceuticals on rooftops in urban areas. And that's a really bad idea, but it solved the problem of cyanotoxin contamination in over-the-counter supplements. We pitched it, talked to people that were a lot smarter than ourselves, and actually stumbled upon the problem of indoor carbon dioxide. I needed a CO2 source or carbon source for my microalgae that we were going to be growing, and we learned that sick building syndrome is a colossal problem all around the world, frankly. And that's how we pivoted into AlgenAir, and what we do is use microalgae to combat sick building syndrome and improve humans' health by reducing carbon dioxide indoors and producing oxygen.
Yeah, so that's interesting. And just to give us a little bit more about where you are in terms of AlgenAir, in terms of your progression. How did you get from kind of ideation to startup to the actual structure, and give us a little bit of an overview of where the business is right now?
Certainly. We started the business way back in 2018 and immediately started on a minimum viable product. The Arium is our flagship device. It's a one-room solution for one office space or one bedroom, maybe one living room, and that's a half-gallon device that grows microalgae. We released it to market in 2019, 2020, and we've been selling ever since. I thought I was going to be a professor, after graduate school. So I had my blazer with the patches picked out and everything.
I had one of those.
Yeah. And all of a sudden, we're selling the Arium to, hundreds at that time of customers around the continental United States. And then we kind of made ourselves jobs. So you have to continue to support those customers, and that's something I'm incredibly grateful for. So we're continuing selling the Arium, which is the consumer device, so direct to consumer and hardware. And your audience is familiar with the challenges that go along with that quadrant. And we're scaling up the technology to grow larger volumes of biomass and clean larger volumes of air. So we're going from a half gallon to 100 gallons, and then eventually the vision would be from blueprint to construction, right? Integrated photobioreactors or Arium living technology into our built environment.
So that's a great solution, and it begs the question about kind of the stakeholders you're engaging with, and how your solutions and your products more generally. How did you think about or consider the impact of this venture on those stakeholders?
It's an incredibly important consideration. I don't think you can take that any more. You can't overstate it, is what I'm saying. So the ultimate goal is to clean the most amount of air for the most amount of people as possible, right? To combat sick building syndrome in the United States and globally. And the calculus that goes into that would be, how do we create a revenue stream now and fail fast and fail cheaply? We tried that, and like I said, we've got thousands of customers across the United States, which we're incredibly grateful for. So we haven't failed fast and we haven't failed cheap, but that allows us to build a business on a product that people love, so we can scale the technology. The consideration, and one of the things that we've been working at addressing right now, the Arium is at a higher price point, and it's a luxury product. So that always bothered us in the Facebook comments, in speaking to people every day, right? You're looking at a $300 price point for a higher end device. How do we lower that cost? And that's why we launched the AlgenAir, which is a do-it-yourself kit that significantly lowers that price point 2 orders of magnitude, and caters to the educational clients and maybe low-income households that can't afford a $300 piece of functional decor.
So the idea of this destructive side of entrepreneurship is very, in a basic sense, when you look at the stakeholders you're trying to serve, and you're obviously providing quite a good service to multiple stakeholder groups, people benefit from your product, and it improves their health and everything. So you're really doing some very socially oriented business model here. Were you surprised, or has there ever been an unintended consequence to a different stakeholder group that you didn't see coming? That's sort of what the destructive side is. It's the unintended consequences to different stakeholder groups that weren't necessarily the target of the venture.
Yeah, I think looking at, and my background also included some plastics recycling companies, and the unintended use of creating hardware, launching it, and then having to either deal with customers that maybe no longer would like to use the product for any reason, and any hardware that may not be functional. So we do offer a program that we can take back hardware, refurbish it, just to minimize that waste stream of plastics, a little bit of metal, and then glass, which is infinitely recyclable. But that was, I guess, the glass was one design decision we went to very early on, is for several reasons, but also the recyclability of glass.
And as you scale up, does the notion of circularity, does that become more challenging? And have you received any pushback from partners within the value chain that would have a hard time scaling to that level of circularity?
Yeah, it's an interesting conversation with your manufacturer when you say, okay, we're going to be intaking hardware that we then have to refurbish or upgrade We've always iteratively improved the hardware. So instead of launching completely new designs that has no compatibility, we'll have compatibility between our releases. So we can take a customer's device that we sold in 2020 and we can receive that hardware and then upgrade it so that we're not throwing it in the trash and sending them the 2025 model, so to speak.
Oh, excellent.
So it sounds like societal impacts are part of your decision making now.
Absolutely. And I think day to day, we ship microalgae every day. The biggest, one of the problems that we originally faced very early on, we're shipping, so the Arium's supported by a refill subscription, right? You need fresh algae and you need food for that algae or concentrated nutrients, and there's a replaceable filter that prevents contamination. So we're selling these and we're sending, refills to their customers every day of the week. We started out with 2-day shipping and we were shipping 16 ounces by 32 ounces of liquid. Shipping liquid uses an incredible amount of carbon resources, right?
Okay.
So you're shipping it very quickly because it needs to arrive in 2 days, and you're shipping a lot of that liquid, so it's extremely heavy. I mean, water's one of the most dense molecules. So it's economically economically, and it has a huge impact on the planet. So over that stretch, refining our refill was critical, where we went from needing to arrive in our customer's doorstep in 48 hours, uses more fuel because it's expedited shipping, and it's extremely heavy, so we cut back. Now we ship around 6 to 8 ounces of liquid. It's a super concentrated formula, and it's a proprietary process and formulation that allows that shelf life of the living material to extend well past 2 days. So you can use less fuel, ship it slower, and ensure its viability to the end user. So that impacts day to day, certainly.
Do you worry, this is sort of anti-entrepreneurial question, do you ever worry about growing too big too fast and the consequences that could be associated with that? Is there a proper pace? And for other entrepreneurs too, some advice to our audience.
It's a great problem to have.
Yes.
to grow big too fast too quickly. We've bootstrapped almost from the beginning, so it's been a slow build over time. Release the MVP, gain customers over time. We've gone through accelerator programs, IW, here in Pittsburgh, Techstars. So they've certainly accelerated our growth, but growing too big too fast would be an awesome problem to have, I suppose. There's a lot more problems that you'd have to address at scale. We like to work on a schedule that we can identify those problems 6 to 8 weeks on the smaller side, right? We want to address problems 6 months that we may run into given any current growth trajectory, for whatever release that could cause that inflection point. If that makes sense.
You seem to have a long-term vision on this. That's good.
Right. I'm going to tack a little bit different, because one of the things that Dave and I have discovered and considered in our research is the influence of stakeholders on thinking about or informing entrepreneurs about these kind of destructive or unintended consequences. So in thinking about your solutions on a day-to-day as well as a strategic level, how much do you engage with your partners, and how much are you learning from them to kind of enhance? And who are the kind of learning sources for you in terms of the stakeholders that you're engaging on a regular basis?
That would be our
and I apologize
team.
I apologize for that triple, quadruple loaded
That's great.
question.
Yeah, it's great.
Right, exactly. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, we'd be meeting with our leadership team, myself, Mark Comerford, and our manufacturing team on that to see what we can do today that would make a beneficial impact in 6 months and avoid unnecessary waste. So day to day, again, looking at if we implement this hardware change, what will that do for the stock on the manufacturing side, who they're planning 2 years in advance on what goes into their PCB line. So what components do they have on hand? What changes and improvements can we make to the hardware today?
Right.
And how do we minimize waste, which was a topic on the last conversation? How do we minimize that waste from a hardware standpoint is crucial. On the larger scale, Arium living technology, 100-liter bioreactors, and applicable to the smaller scale, when you're done growing, what you can do is actually take the biomass that you've grown and then feed other photobioreactors with it, or use it for a fertilizer, nutraceutical, so we don't have a waste stream in the algae that we've grown. There's actually inherent value in that biomass. When the technology catches up for refining, you can actually derive petroleum-based products from it, right? Fuel, plastics, bioplastics, and biofuels. So we like to minimize that waste stream in the living material side and the hardware side.
That's excellent.
Yeah, Dan, I guess we're about done with our scripted questions, but I just appreciate your insights here. Maybe a good way to wrap this up is, do you have any advice for any burgeoning entrepreneurs on how to be successful, but also keep in mind the effects that the venture could have on society?
Yeah. What a great question. I would say, in a little bit, what you heard last week as well is say yes, right? Go to that Techstars event. Go talk to people about your idea. Go pitch it. Talk to people smarter than you. Because earlier when I was speaking on, okay, we're two students with an idea to put hundreds of gallons onto a roof. Go to people who are smarter than you to explain why that's a really bad idea. Go learn more than you did yesterday, and then refine that idea and go build it, right? Go build your MVP, whatever, if it's an app, if it's hardware. We bought a 3D printer and started prototyping because we didn't have $50,000 to go to a hardware prototyping agency, right? My advice would be go build it and talk to people that are smarter than you, test the market as cheaply and as quickly as you can, talk to the stakeholders that you're wanting to sell to, and then think critically on the stakeholders who you may not be aware that you would have rippling consequences for.
Right.
Go talk to people, but also have intellectual property protection. I say that with the great news if we actually did.
Don't give it away.
Don't give it away. Yeah, protect yourself legally. But we did have, and it was a long process, we had our non-provisional utility patent granted after many years with the U.S. Patent Office. So I say that, go test it, go build it, talk to people, make sure that you have rings of protection as well.
Yes.
Would be
That's a very good advice, yes.
a good add-on.
I know we're wrapping up, but I actually have a technical question for you. When you talk about kind of the biomass and the algae, is there could there be too much algae? You know what I mean? Have you guys ever considered, either from a kind of production standpoint, could you make as much, or what's the limits of making it? And then if there is so much in society, is that necessarily a bad thing?
As a staunch advocate of microalgae, you can never have too much microalgae. There's dozens of downstream applications of the actual raw biomass of algae. You can go and sell dried spirulina, which is one of the strains we grow, for a market price today. And that's not even considering when that refining technology that I spoke of earlier can catch up and create high-value products to displace petroleum products, right? Plastics, fuels. But you could also, in the event that your biomass was growing too quickly, too fast, too abundantly, too quickly, you could dial in your photobioreactor to reduce that growth rate,
Right.
At scale.
Sadly, maybe I've watched or read too many comic books and dystopian movies, so I had to ask that question.
That would be an unintended consequence, right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
I'll be thinking about algae all night now. So
Right.
Yeah.
Well, listen, Dan, thank you so much. I want to thank Dan Fucich of AlgenAir, CEO and founder of AlgenAir, to come to our podcast today as part of the Ethics Vibe series, The Destructive Side of Entrepreneurship. We learned a lot. I'm sure our listeners have learned a lot from you too. I've learned a lot about the science behind it too, but the business behind it is very inspiring. So really admire what you do and how you go about it. Please look for us on the podcast venues for more ethics vibes conversations around the destructive side of entrepreneurship. And also we'll be starting a nonprofit and ethics series this summer. So please look for us there for Duquesne University. I want to thank my friend and colleague Peter Giannidis for helping make this happen. Say any
All good.
closing statement. Thank you all, and we'll see you again soon.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Thanks, Dan.
Thanks for the opportunity.
It was a great talk.
Pleasure. Yeah.